All rise. We're seeing a district court for County of Washington, State of Michigan, is now set. All those have been for the court drawn near, the honorable Judge Cedric Simpson.
Maybe see. Morning.
You were wondering where my kids took my car this weekend. Took my coat out of it.
You have no others? No, I'm just thought I'd ask. Your kids took your car, took your coat.
Yeah, I had to do some moving. My car is a truck. They disrobed me.
I blame a lot of stuff on my kids too. Was I expecting anybody else on this side?
Not today.
Not today, okay. All right. So it may go peacefully for me. Or not. All right. The way, so that, and I don't know how well we clarified it, but there were what I'm calling affirmative cases. There are 10 of those that we have. Those I'm hearing in the afternoon. The issues involving those cases. These are the summary proceeding actions, which we will continue to deal with. So court does call the case of Arbor One West versus Rico McGuire and Arbor One. And Arbor One is also included in that et al. All of the cases.
Those three.
All right. The last time when I was reviewing my notes where we were is that we were trying to organize the testimony that was coming before the court. And I believe the individuals from the city of Ypsilanti had been coming down all the time and had not yet gotten to them. And so I was hoping we'd get to their testimony this morning.
Yeah, I would like to start with that, Your Honor.
All right, very good. Who would you like to call?
I think we should start with Joe Myers.
All right, sir, please come forward, be sworn.
Testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so we got.
Yes, sir.
See, first and last name for the record, please.
My name is Joseph Myers, ALSCH. Community services for the city.
May inquire.
Morning. So can you explain just a little of your background with this position?
Yeah, so as the director of community services, the head of the building planning and code enforcement departments with the city of Ypsilanti. I held that position for a year, and then I was also in that position for 9 years.
Okay, and are you familiar with the properties that we're dealing with today, the Arbor One West, North?
Yes,
Okay. What is your background dealing with those properties in particular?
So when I was employed with the city previously, I was coordinating the inspections and the head of the building department, direct head of the building department during the inspections in 2022, and then also in 2019, prior to that. And then I've been coordinating the inspections and the enforcements under the help of Jerry Dunham, building department manager and building official of the city.
And have you like personally visited these units?
Yes.
Okay. And would you say that you have a sense of what they've been like over time?
Yes.
So you've been in court, you're familiar that there's been several court orders, and we're here today specifically on a show cause hearing, claiming that the plaintiffs failed to comply with the court order to do specific things to specific units. Are you familiar with that order?
Yes.
Okay, are you prepared to talk about any of the units that were the subject of that order?
I believe in mid-February, Judge Simpson had asked me to do an inspection of all of the units. In February, after the court order was issued, and so I conducted a inspection of all but 2 of those units. I'm concerned why those 2 were not inspected. Over 4 days, it was definitely a challenge to get into the properties due to lack of notice and due to lockouts. So, but we were able to inspect all but 2 of the units.
Okay.
We had also inspected after that, so
Mhm.
those units that were locked out. So we do have an updated report on those units that I was unable to get into on my February 25th and 28th.
I see. Okay. So the order from February 4th was very specific in the issues that needed to be addressed. Are you aware of any instances that where the work that was listed in the order was not complete?
Yes, there was very little work that was done in between when the order was issued and my inspection. I want to say one building had corrected, one unit had the issues corrected. Not all the issues the city had pointed out, but the issues that were listed in the judge's order, and that was 720 Clark Road, Unit 107. The rest of the units, we saw while some of the work had been started, it was not done in a like manner, and the work would need to be redone.
Can you explain what that means?
Yeah. So when you go in and remove a ceiling fan and then you re-drywall above that, the work has to be done in a professional manner as per the manufacturer specifications. And we observed the drywall work was not done correctly, the caulking work was not done correctly, and some of the mold was not remediated.
And what does that really mean? Like, why does it matter?
So when you go in and change a vent fan, if there's mold or water saturation, the drywall will never actually have the correct type separation. It will act as it should when you just paint over wet drywall.
Okay. So, Your Honor, would you like us to go through each individual unit? What would you prefer?
If you want to go through each unit, let's go
Okay.
through each unit.
The first one on the order is, or you mentioned already 720 unit 107. Would that be a good way to go through these? Okay. Well, let's move on to 720 108. The order specifically says heating, water damage, mold, broken windows.
Correct.
Can you tell me whether any of that work was complete and when you inspected that property?
We inspected it on February 27th, 2025. And in that report, we did observe mold and water damage present in it. Then we also did a further inspection in April 2nd, and we saw no change to the work that had been done, and we noted workmanship issues. So still serious issues with the drywall.
Okay.
Specifically on the top.
Okay. And you have those records available?
Yeah, I actually recommend all the reports, reports that I have for the tenant.
Okay, let's hold off on those just for a moment. Actually, I mean, maybe we should, is it okay, Your Honor, if I approach maybe
Yeah.
one for?
Yeah. do more than just the court order. These are the city's and
And are these the reports for all of the units that are in litigation, or what are they?
they are the reports for all of the buildings that are before Judge Simpson right now. Not all the buildings on Arbor One, this is just the buildings that are part of
Mhm.
this case.
Okay, and are you familiar with all of these records?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask that these be admitted as evidence and exhibit. I think it's probably B at this point. I realize that we haven't had a chance to go through the records, and counsel for plaintiff hasn't either, but
They haven't mailed to.
right, so they should have been in their possession at some point, right? And they are business records, Your Honor. Or city records.
Response.
Your Honor, I guess I'm a little confused as to the process today. Frankly, out of the show cause was pertaining to these cases before the court.
Correct.
And as of today, or as of last week, if not before that, every single one of the tenants that was the subject matter of this court has been relocated in one way or another. Everyone is either in the villas, has gone to a different complex, or is hoteled. There's not one single tenant that's left in a unit that is not up to snuff.
Yeah.
That being said,
Hold on. Stop. Stop. You're out if I hear it again. Go ahead, Mr. Freeman.
that being said, the work on those tenants' units has proceeded to conclusion. So even though they've been relocated, the property manager has redone those units, and they would be suitable for relocation, relocation if they were inspected at this point. So not only has,
What are you telling me that?
what I'm telling you is, I'm sorry.
Go on.
Well, what I'm saying is that Mr. Myers is talking about what his inspection in February of 25. And okay, there was work that needed to be done, but it's been done. And, you know, I think that as far as the show cause is concerned, Arbor One and Arbor One West they've showed up and done the work. And I don't know why we're rehashing what was going on in February, because we've relocated everybody and done work.
May I respond, Your Honor? The violations of the order are the order that was from February. So we're showing that there's a pattern of violating the court's orders. And as you heard a moment ago, the city's prepared to testify as to the current conditions as of April. So I believe that you will hear testimony, Your Honor, that they're not all in complete condition, to the extent that the court wants to consider that. We appreciate that many people have been relocated, but this is a show cause hearing about whether or not they've complied with the court's order.
Well, I guess, Mr. Friedman, the first thing I'd have to ask, because we ran into this problem at the last hearings. And have indeed all of the individuals been relocated? Because that was a problem where it was represented to the court that they had been relocated, and then we found out that they had not been relocated. Well, certain people had not been.
I could provide sworn testimony that they've been relocated.
That everybody that, okay. So then the question, go ahead.
I think, Your Honor, there's one tenant at least who does not have an active case, but was the subject of the court's order, who has not been relocated. So he was included in the court's most recent order. And I believe he will testify that he has not been relocated yet, just for the record.
He's not a part of this case.
I don't know how the court would like to treat that situation. It is unusual,
Well,
I admit, but he
oh.
was part of the order.
Okay. Let me move past that just a moment. Then I guess the second point that Mr. Friedman is making is that the testimony I'm hearing, or there seems to be a dispute, maybe, maybe not, that there were repairs to the subject unit, and that all of these units are now, well, I don't know that one could say they're in compliance because there's no CO, but that the work was complete. That's what you're indicating to me, Mr. Freeman.
Correct.
And Ms. Masco, you're indicating that that's not, or are you?
Well, Your Honor, plaintiff has provided access to some of their records. And I looked at this yesterday, the most recent documents. I printed it off, so it wasn't something that they provided to me directly, but it was part of their records. And I believe it was updated in April. And there's a number of instances where people have been moved and it's marked as complete, but it doesn't look that the work was completed. I think maybe it's complete because no one's living there. So, I mean, I didn't
Well,
obviously.
what, I
create
guess
this
I don't know what
document.
that they're marking it as complete because there's no longer anyone residing in the unit, or that the work was actually done, irrespective of whether or not there's somebody in the unit.
I believe, I don't know. I don't want to speak for them, Your Honor, certainly. But it looks to me that there's at least some instances where some of the work was done, but it's not 100% done.
All right.
I mean, I wasn't prepared to take testimony about that because no one's, we're talking about prior orders and whether they're violated and no one's living there. Apparently.
Let me ask this. When was of the subject matter units, when was the last time they were inspected?
It depends on the building, but really April 8th was the last time, but we also have our records of permits that have been pulled, no building permit, and any of these units have been final, which means the work is not complete. There are some plumbing and mechanical.
There are, or there are not?
There are some plumbing, mechanical, building permits that have been final, but the overall building permits have to be final.
Okay.
We're also having a
Greater than average, sir.
so, and for all of our inspections, we do it at a 5% rate on all inspections. This one's about a 9% rate.
So sometimes it feels like I'm going in a circle, but the last time that we were here, part of the reason that one lease was contemplating work had not been done was because the required permits for the work had not been pulled and or approved. So that the work, at least in theory, couldn't have been done. Is that what is happening at this point? Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, so I have for every one of these units, every permit that's been pulled on these units, whether or not it's issued or final.
So I guess, Mr. Friedman, if there's certain work that needs to be completed, and that in order to complete the work, one needs the permit to do, and the permit hasn't been pulled and completed, then how would I say that the work has been done?
Well, first of all, Your Honor, I don't believe we're in a situation where the permits haven't been pulled that needed to be pulled for these particular jobs, for these particular tenants and these particular units. So I believe the permits have been pulled. They may not all have been finalized, but that doesn't mean the work wasn't done. We're kind of wordsmithing a little bit here this morning when he says that the work wasn't completed because the permit hasn't been final inspection. That doesn't mean the work wasn't done. But
Well, let's back up then and get away from sort of the wordsmithing. Have the permits, the last time that we were here, part of the issue was the permits had not been pulled.
well, today,
And
we pulled over 400 permits. Vast majority of which have been final.
would that be about accurate?
Not according to the city.
Pardon?
Not according to the city's records.
$391.
Okay, well, that's about 400. I get that, but I get,
My record, 274.
pardon?
My entire record, 274.
Okay. I feel like I'm in Washington. We can't even agree on the facts. What would be, where are you getting your 391?
Property manager.
Pardon?
Property manager.
We can all at least agree that if the work that needs to be done would require a permit and the permit hasn't been pulled, whether or not it's final in terms of the final inspection, then the work, if the permit was not pulled, the work can't be deemed completed. We can all at least agree on that, right? So also to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, the 391 are permits that have been pulled through the city.
I don't believe they're all city. I think some of them are on the other side of the street.
Okay, that may be our discrepancy. So some of these permits were pulled for the villas in the township.
I believe so. And
Do we know okay, so the numbers may indeed agree if I take those out, right?
I don't agree, but
You don't agree with what?
no, I think there's more than 174 pulled in the city.
Okay, but there's a difference if I have 391 and 174, and if I have 174 and 180. And what I'm trying to get at is how many of those permits, in terms of the number that you've given me, have been pulled by or were pulled in the township as opposed to being pulled in the city?
I can't give you that answer off the top of my head. I can just tell you that they've gotten 120 COCs in the township in the last couple of months.
In the township.
In order to get, and that is how we were able to relocate as many people as we did into the villas. It's because those are all certified units.
Okay, I understand that, but I'm working on the Ipsy side of the road. And I'm trying to figure out how many permits were pulled of that. Well, however you want to look at it, how many of the 391 are permits for the villas as opposed to how many of those are permits for Arbor One West?
And I don't have that number. I don't have.
So let me ask this, Mr. Mayor. If I take your number of the 174, I think you said permits, if all of those permits were pulled, the work done, and then I realize they haven't been finalized, but if they were finalized, would that overall have satisfied the repairs that would have been needed to these units?
So I would put in there that the work that was in the court order was compliant.
Pardon?
I would put in my notes that the work that the court order would have been. But I have 13 units that no permits have been pulled of all of these, so, and probably about 4 more where it's just electrical permit, require also building permits. This is as of yesterday.
As of yesterday.
Yes.
So, Mr. Friedman, do you know anything about those 13 units that, where there's no permits that have been pulled?
Other than the prospect that the work that needed to be done didn't need to be permitted, no. Not everything that had to be repaired or whatever has to.
No, but the question that I asked is, maybe I'll clarify. Mr. Mayor, the 13 units that you talk about, the work that needed to be completed would require permits.
Yes.
And you're indicating to the court that those permits for those 13 units had not been pulled.
Correct. We go to those specifically or what we observed.
Yeah, hold on, we may do that. And you don't know anything about those, Mr. Freeman. You or your client don't.
I am not blissfully ignorant, I'm ignorant.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so those 13 units, as we talk about those 13 units, you don't know what those, which units those are, or do you?
I just know that everybody's been relocated.
I know after some effort, we've gotten at least to that point.
Your Honor, I actually think that's not correct. Well, maybe it is. I'm sorry. I'll retract that statement. I do know that at least one tenant that I spoke with this morning has continuing issues with her unit, and she's got a hotel through Wednesday. That may be extended today pursuant to the court's order. We'll see.
Well, I thought we took care of that issue regarding the hotel and the extension. I thought we took care of how that's to be handled at the last hearing we were at.
We addressed it, Your Honor.
All right. So the other. So of those units, is there a reason why the city hasn't done a final inspection on those units?
We've not been scheduled.
Okay, well, who would do the scheduling? Okay.
We can't issue, we can't do an inspection until we are called out to do inspection. And sometimes a lot of this work requires a rough inspection and final inspection. We also have observed and we've asked the people pulling the permit, so they're actually not adequately stating the costs of the work being done, because building permits are based on the cost. And so in the vast majority of cases, the claiming the work to be done is $500 to $1,000. And the work is expanding and they're required to update their permit and they're not doing that. So some of these permits are getting suspended for not doing that.
But, I mean, the reality is they're putting that cost on there so that they don't necessarily have to pay a whole lot of money,
Correct.
right? I mean, okay. So on those units that claim that, why hasn't a final inspection been called for then?
on a number of units, Your Honor, we have asked them to come out and inspect. We have 2 buildings we believe are ready to be recertified, and the city has refused to do the final inspections. They're claiming that we have to pay a bunch of fines from basically $600 per unit, which comes to about for condemnation, I guess. So they want about over $250,000 from us in order to come and re-inspect.
For 2 buildings?
No, two, they won't re-inspect, period, until we pay the $274,000 that they want.
That is,
Okay.
so the property manager has asked the city to reschedule an inspection schedule for June. We did reschedule an inspection in March. When we went out there, none of the work was done. Like, the majority of the work was not done. And so they were asking for us to come in especially to do an additional inspection and reschedule a bunch of other people's inspections. And we said, there has to be some good faith in doing that. As far as final inspections as it relates to building permits, we've never predicated any sort of fee payment outside of paying for permits to come do the final inspections on these direct units. This was to do an entire building re-inspection that is already scheduled for July 8th. And so they wanted us to push that up and reschedule other people's inspections. And so we said, at this point, until all of your permits are pulled for this building to get it done, there's no point in us rescheduling inspections that are going to fail.
We have 2 buildings that are ready to go to get people back in, get people rehoused. And they are ready, they should be ready for finals in the next week to 2 weeks.
Which 2 buildings are those?
720 Green and 721 Clark.
720 Green. And which one?
721 West Clark.
We still have building permits that have not been pulled or suspended. Well, no buildings. Of work that this week.
Okay, so is the landlord aware, or the owner aware of the permits that need to be pulled?
The landlord has pushed back on a lot of the permits that need to be pulled, saying they do not need them for drywall repair and for electrical repair. And we have indicated to the property manager, who has agreed with us, that they do need to pull those permits, but the landlord is not being cooperative.
Yep. Okay. Let's just deal with 720 Green and 721 West Clark. Mary, you're indicating that there are permits that would need to be pulled to complete the work that was outstanding on those units.
Correct.
Mr. Friedman, you're indicating that all of the permits necessary to repair those units have been pulled and that they're ready for the inspection.
There's obviously is a disagreement, but in the 20 years that this property manager.
Obviously, what disagreement? Because I don't.
That what permits are required or necessary. We believe that the ones that have been pulled. There is apparently a disagreement as to what is required. There is clearly, in this particular set of circumstances with these units, these buildings, clearly permits are being required that have not traditionally ever been required by.
Such as?
Your Honor, I have to object. He's
Drywall repairs.
not offering actual testimony from anyone, and
He's trying to answer the court's inquiry. So, I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I.e. drywall repairs. The disputes are numerous because the fly specking that's been taken, that the city has taken with respect to requiring permits has become onerous, and it's very expensive. It's not, these are not $50 permits. And so it's becoming almost a money grab, not almost a money grab by the city to require all of these permits for these small repairs that have not traditionally been required.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that then you disagree with the fact that I need a permit, but so since we didn't need to permit, we went ahead and did the work.
In some cases, I think that's correct.
Well, let's just deal with 720 and 721. It seems to me what you're telling me is that where we disagreed with the city for the need for a permit, we went in and did the work because we didn't believe that a permit was required.
Clarification. We were asked for the inspections to take place in a couple of weeks because we do still have to finish a few things, which would be permit required. So we've not done pulling permits for these last couple of things, these last few things.
Okay. Say that to me again. Where I was before I asked the last question was you said that the work had been completed and that they're ready to be inspected.
I did say in a couple of weeks. There's some final things that need to be done, and some of them will require permits. But part of the inspection process, as you know, just probably better than I do, is that sometimes you call for your inspection, and they come out and they say, okay, you've got your 90%, your 95%. These are the 6 ticked items that you need to finish to get your final. And so, to some extent, you're asking for the inspection so that you can A, pass, or B, be given us a list of things to complete and get re-inspected. That's where I think we are with 720 and 721.
So what you're saying, let me just rephrase it. We need them to come out and do the inspection so we know what needs to be done so that we can do it and then get the final inspection.
And we think we're close anyway. Yes.
And the city won't do that because
Number one, there's a lot of pending litigation. However, with these buildings, we went out and inspected with 2 property project managers and indicated all of the issues we have that this was done end of March. Walked through every property, went through everything, which was a pretty, I mean, the 2 inspections are looking at like 30 pages of still things that need to be done. If we were close on these, it would probably be less than half of that, but there are 24 units per building. We're still seeing, and which we continue to see in all these units, a lot of lack of smoke detectors, a lot of units under construction without permits, some have permits, bath fans still not working, that the ceiling needs to be repaired, without permits being pulled, or permits have just been pulled. And so with our report, we do get into some doors and some flooring issue, which are property maintenance issues, but we do have, while we do have a lot of units under construction, we don't dispute that. We still are writing out letters to ensure that the boiler and the buildings are working. We've had a lot of problems with the heat when it's building wide heat and the fins being damaged and covers missing. And we're waiting on some letters from a boiler saying that the boiler will work properly. We're still seeing leaks in units. We're still seeing ceilings in disrepair. And this is the 2 buildings they are speaking of. And so I'm not saying they haven't come a long way. They have. But no building permit has been final. There's still a lot of outstanding plumbing and electrical permits out there.
But it seems to me that with reference to those 2 buildings and the units that would be with this court, what the landlord's asking is for and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Freeman, they're asking for an inspection to basically give us our checklist of what else we need to do. And then we want to complete that.
Yes, and I believe that I'm looking at the inspections that the city's provided, and the last one was March 25th.
So this building was scheduled for April. They asked us to push it up because they indicated the building was done. When we did that, we gave them the checklist of what needed to be done prior to us going back.
Got it.
The checklist they're looking for is right here.
And the checklist. So are you indicating that's been completed? The March 25th, I think you said.
Could Attorney Deputy Legion Gordon speak? She's been following the code enforcement and permit process throughout this on behalf of
The landlord.
Good morning, Your Honor. So I'm
So I guess the answer is yes. Go ahead.
So looking at these two documents that Mr. Mars provided, 720 Green and 720 Clark.
Hold on, counsel. Need a name and P number.
Deputy Gordon Lehman, P 83909.
Thank you.
But it's okay. Looking at these two documents, the one from 720 Green from February 25th. So almost 2 months ago, and the one for 720 is from almost 2 months ago. So although they gave us this checklist, the landlord's contention is that they have worked through this checklist. So we're asking for them to move up the CFC reinspection. It's currently scheduled for, I believe, June 6th or 9th. 15th. And so the request has been made to move it up to no later than, I believe, May 5th. Because we believe that at that point, these buildings will be ready, the permits, if any, will be pulled. From my understanding, there's finalizing some of the permits with regards to the cost and getting them final. But if the goal here is to get these tenants into nice, new, beautiful buildings that have CFCs.
I don't know that that's the goal, but go ahead.
I mean, that's been the position from my understanding, the city is to get these tenants in buildings that have CFCs. You know, we can't find a reason why, you know, getting them out there to do these inspections when they're at the property almost every day anyway, would be unreasonable. The goal is to get.
So why won't the city go out and just inspect or set the appointment
So,
for 720 and 721?
so first off, as the Mr. Freeman did know, there's substantial costs that the owner has not paid for any of the inspections that we've done out there at this point. And so we do need to see these come in. On top of that, because there's a cost to run, like building permit has to fund itself by state law. And so because they're not paying any of the fees for these inspections, that is concern number one. Concern number two is the time aspect. And just to be clear, while the inspection notice does indicate February 2025, when we were out there on April 2nd to do the inspection of 720 Green, no work had been done from February 25th. Once again, we pulled this building up already to do the work. And until we see the permits pulled and final, there's, in the city's position, going out and rescheduling everyone's schedule to do an inspection where permits aren't pulled yet is a concern that we have. Because that would be, you know, it's a lot of time and manpower to go into these buildings and do inspections, 24 units or now 48 units. That takes about a day. And we already have inspections scheduled daily until then.
So why haven't the permits been pulled yet?
It's my.
I'm just saying 720 and 721. Let's just deal with that.
I mean, it's my understanding that there have been permits pulled, and right now there's been dealing with issues of financial aspect of it, finalizing certain permits. And again, we're asking for the reinspection to be moved earlier, which is not today.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, and correct me, Mr. Myers, if I'm incorrect in this. They would do that if they saw certain things. They'd move the inspection up. One would be the pulling of the permits, right? That's one thing.
Yeah.
All right, okay. And then there's this other financial piece, which figure out at some point, but my question on the permits, if that's one criteria, why can't that be done prior to them scheduling?
The information that we have is that it's been the financial aspect. You know, this is the first time I'm hearing from Mr. Myers that there's an issue where.
All right, counsel, what do you mean by financial aspect?
Pay these fines and we will come out at that point, as opposed to.
Fines or the permits?
Or fines. Pay this money owed to the city, and we will consider moving the.
Okay, let me ask, okay, I hear you. So is there a way regarding whatever these other costs to attribute a certain portion of that to these buildings?
The permits are the number one concern we have, that we're having.
Not my question.
Yeah.
I need an answer to my question. Because what council's indicating to me is that there are these fines and other costs outside of the permits, right?
Right.
And what I'm saying, how many buildings are out there? 10, was it?
At the property, 18.
Okay, so whatever that big figure is there a way of taking 1/19 and 1/18 per building at this point, saying, or 2/18, so coming up with some figure that this is what would need to be paid at this point, and then we can set the inspection?
We are willing to work under what the court would like us to do. We are willing to talk to them. Our number one concern is getting the permits pulled, and I know that you already said that. As far as the fees go, no building can have any fees owed before a permit certificate is issued. And so, because we have done many inspections out there and not received any funding, any of the money for those inspections, that would have to be paid at least, but
At least what?
at least the money for all the inspections and the outstanding fines for occupying the certificate prior to a reinspection.
All right, so that I'm clear, at least in terms of what you said. They would need to pay for the permits to do the work. And then whatever fees or these other costs for 720 and 721 would need to be paid.
We would prefer actually all of the fines be paid, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, then, can somebody answer my question? If everybody understands what I'm saying, sometimes I talk too like complicated. All I'm trying to say is, if there are 18, 19 buildings, there would be a number of different ways of doing that. Either you can attribute it to each building, and I can say, this is what's coming from this building. Or I can just say, I'm not sure what's coming from the building, but some of it's in the aggregate, some of it's this, and then I take that big number and I just divide it by 18.
We can attribute it to each building. We can.
Okay,
Like I
so
said, I
do
would
they
have to-
know how much these other fees and fines and costs are for 720 and 721?
I would have to say yes. Because they get all the same.
Okay,
invoices that we-
so, okay, I know what you're gonna say. Council,
We don't have that exact number. It could be total. At this point, we've just been instructed.
I could say that it might just simply be simpler to do 2/18 to get it done.
I think I said that like 15 minutes ago.
You did.
God,
It's also.
it's hard being brilliant like me. But anyway, go ahead, Roger.
It's also our understanding, Your Honor, that kind of breakdown information has been requested from the city manager as of last week, and the property manager was told that they would get back to them. So
Of what type of breakdown?
regarding the fines associated with the buildings.
With each building? Or overall?
So the request was everything broken down per building. And the information we have is that we would get back with you. And we don't have that information as of today.
That is correct. The owner, Judge, just to be very, the owner, or the manager has requested several reports from the city constantly. When they have full access to all the information we have online. And so while our staff is very small, and we are trying to do a lot with a little, it does take time for us to run these reports.
Okay, but here's what I'm saying, folks. I realize all of this is difficult. All of these folks that have had to move, there's been a difficulty. And painful for everyone. If you give me the numbers, I'll do the math. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be right on the other end, but I'll do the math. That's why I became a lawyer, so I didn't have to, but I can add, I think. I'm just saying, can't you come up with a number that's attributable to 720 and 721?
Yes,
How soon, how fast can you come up with that number and give it to them?
I mean,
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out why that takes so long.
because the system that we use has a glitch that is being fixed on this update, and so I cannot run an Excel report. So it would have to be gone through manually, like they could do as well, to add up all of these numbers for all of these buildings. And even with these.
No, I'm just saying for these two buildings.
Yes, no, and I'm just saying, I can assure everybody on the end of the week, what realistically it would be me and who's an audience actually doing this, because once again.
Okay, so hold on. Somewhere. Somewhere there are these, let me just take set for these buildings, for these two. Somewhere there are these fees that are attributable to this building,
Yes.
right? They would be categorized by something that is attributable to 720 or 721, right?
Yes.
Are you telling me those aren't all in one spot?
So the way the city system works is, it is all within a system called BSNA. When they did their April update, it locked us out of running Excel reports. And I asked them to fix that, and we're hoping that fix is done by the second update.
Okay, then if that's the case, then how can I be here saying you guys need to do this? And you're requesting two things from them to accomplish this task, but one of them you can't give to them.
So the city has sent them all of the invoices for all of these. So it's not like the city's not sent them the invoices. They received every invoice for all of these inspections and fees. And so because they have received all of the same documentation, they get this.
Somebody should be able to give me a number. It's crazy. Doesn't even make any sense.
Part of the issue as well as the city is saying that there's late fees associated with some of these. And so that would be something that they would have, but we don't have that number. So we
don't have what number?
Whatever the late fees, the city intends on charging for any of these fines. And so in order to get a proper number regarding what it would take to get any of the buildings or the two buildings, that number would have to come from the city, which is why it was requested from the city.
Oh, for God's sakes, folks. Then what's the principal amount without the late fees? How do you not have that number? I mean, you just told me that it's the late fees that cause the problem.
Your Honor, if I understand correctly, it sounds like this is publicly available information, so I don't understand what's preventing
Look,
gathering it.
everybody is just causing a problem, it seems to be here. Because the reality is there's a number somewhere out there. Counsel, I know that you computed a number because you would have had to give that risk assessment to your client. I'm not asking for what you talked about with your client. I'm just saying, you have a ballpark figure of what it is. You just told me you're waiting on what those late fees are. It seems everybody is delaying for the purpose of just delaying.
The city has issued 750 violations, so it would involve.
So how long is it gonna take you to add up 750 numbers?
I mean, I believe.
I'm gonna step off the bench. Somebody, and I'm gonna come back and somebody give me a number for these two buildings. I don't care if the two of you come to different numbers, then I'll figure it out. But somebody give me a number for these two buildings, for that part of it. And then in terms of the permits, do you know what the cost of the permits are that you have to do?
Look at that number as well.
Okay, I'm gonna stand in recess. Somebody give me a number.
You're okay for a second? Different matter.
County of Washington, State of Michigan is now back in session. Honorable Judge Cedric Simpson presides.
You may be seated. Okay. Mr. Meyer, you're still on the stand. Do we have a number?
Yes, we have our number.
You're okay. That's fair enough. All right, what is this is for the two buildings.
Yeah, for the two buildings, we have come up with $52,666.
52.
$666.
Okay. Mr. Meyer, how does,
As far as that is a little more than what I actually think it is, but I also agree with you.
that I didn't expect. Okay, so that 52.6. All right,
And if we could break it down, how we got that number,
sure.
we have 200. So what we did was we took the total fines and that we tallied, we divided it by 18 and then we multiplied that by 2. So the total fines that we had were
Emily,
they were 474,000.
474,000 for the total fine.
And then we multiplied that by 2, and that's how we got the 52,666. But again, that doesn't include any late fees that the city is spending on assessing. So again, that's.
I got you.
It's also important to note, Your Honor, that the property management team and the landlord have tried to pay some of these fines. They've submitted checks, and I believe to the tune of $50,000 to the city to try and bring some of this down, but the checks have been rejected and returned because there's been some sort of issue internally with the city where they say that there are late fees assessed, and so they're considering it a partial payment. So again, this late fee issue with the city, we can't calculate that, so we try to pay, it gets rejected, and then the city contends that we've paid nothing and they won't come out and do any inspection. So, you know, that's something that the court should know as well.
Okay. What was your number?
So I had not gotten to all of the enforcement cases yet. I had gotten to the inspections done, which I was at $12,500 for those two buildings for the inspections that has gone out. And then I see, I was trying to go through, I see 40 enforcement cases. I want to say probably 36 of them are for, we have 80 total enforcement cases on these two buildings. Not all of them are for this round, so I was looking at, I was trying to come up with the actual enforcement number cases.
Okay, but, all right, so let me ask this. The permit fees are gonna be what they are, so I'm not, I mean, and I get that that can change, but that number is gonna be what that number is to be. What in the simplest manner, how are the late fees derived?
When the invoice is over 30 days, which almost all of these are, there's a 20%
20%?
total. So there's not 20% per month, it's just 20%.
So correct me if I'm wrong. This 52 becomes 62 or thereabout, 64.
It could. Depending on when, yes, those for all intents and purposes, yes.
Well, if you're saying that all of them are over 30 days, and that's when the 20% hits, right? Then if they're at 52,666, then I take 20% and that goes on top.
So one of the inspections happened on the 2nd of April, and again, the 2nd of May. Then they will not be charged at 20%. Some of these fees might already have the 20% on them. I do want to say that when the checks that we have received in our office for payment of some of these fees, we get a Arbor One and a check for $10,000 that is dated for February when we get it in April. And so it is our practice when a check is predated to, and the actual mail is postmarked that day or the day before, it is our policy to return predated checks or post, I forget exactly. It is dated for a month and a half, 2 months earlier.
If I assume and make some adjustment, whatever it is, that I take I'm gonna take, if I take their number. Well, let me ask this before I do anything. Was it your understanding of that it was the 20% council, or what were you?
I was not aware. I just know that there were late fees that were to be assessed by the city, and we didn't know what that number was. So.
Is that because of its rolling nature, or, I mean,
I think
or did you, let me ask it this way. Did you know it was 20%?
I didn't know it was 20%.
Okay. I almost want to ask why, but don't answer that. Did you tell them it was 20%?
It's been 20% for over the past 10 years, probably 20 years.
Okay, but, right, but did they know it was 20%? I mean,
They have never spoke to me about this.
Some of these late fees are coming from the refusal to accept the checks as well, which obviously we take issue with. So it's a variety of things at play here.
okay. So if somebody gave you a check, the date is February, you get the check in April, and the city says we won't take the check.
Well, so there's 18 buildings, and we don't know what buildings they want to apply this $10,000 to, and every building is separated out.
Right, but one could take the check and deposit it and then say to them, how do you want me to apply this?
So we asked that all checks come in, how that check is to be applied.
This speaks to a pattern of the issues that we're having with the city here.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I don't know that you want to go there. All right, because I spent 3 years dealing with your client, so there's patterns all over the place here. So um, okay. So, Mr. Mayor, if the city were to get today a check for 52,666, would they take it? Really? What if I ordered you to take it?
No, well,
I mean,
but look at this, we got, I just, the. It is hard to know what people want to be applied to what building, if they do not tell us what building. And if we knew this was to be applied to buildings 721 Clark and 720 Green, that would be helpful, but without knowing the buildings that it needs to be applied to.
52,666. Give me 20%. And where do I get? No, it's fine. I told council I don't do math and she still is trying to make me.
$10,533.
$10,533 and how many cents?
20.
All right. So while we sit here in this gridlock, the owners are indicating to me that there are two buildings that within the very near future could be inspected, potentially then get COs, and then potentially house some of these individuals. That's what I'm hearing. Am I correct, Council?
Correct.
All right. So the city is just concerned because they need to make sure this is applied right and everything. And don't know what to apply it to.
Well, and we would make that.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. So let me answer this for the, just so we have. If I told the owners to take whatever this adds to 53 something and said, you deposit that in the court escrow. If they did that, would you then do the inspections on these two buildings?
When all of the building permits have been pulled.
Okay, I know. But they're going to pull the permit to do the work, right? Am I correct, Council?
Yes.
And
Okay.
during recess, we got more information on the permits, and for these two buildings.
I can't leave you alone for a minute, can I? No, go ahead. What?
For 721 West Clark and 720 Green, Mr. Myers testified about a boiler letter issue, and that could be holding up the process. The boiler letter has been submitted several times by my client. It's been rejected by the city. So that's holding it up, but it's not
Why was it rejected?
there.
Do you know anything about that?
So, our building department manager would be the best one to speak on that. I believe he is here.
Okay.
I'm just speaking to what Mr. Myers testified as.
No, I got you. I got you.
And then, we're dealing with issues with permits. No more permits need to be pulled on this building, is the information that I've had.
You had
All
what?
the issues that are right now.
Say that first word again.
No more permits need to be pulled on these two buildings. They are dealing with open permits that need to be finalized. And so the disputes regarding those permits are, one, the final inspections have not been scheduled. But again, we're asking for the inspection of the CFC to be moved up. We still have time between now and 10 to get the final inspection. Permits have been pulled, you just haven't been finalized. They have to schedule the final inspection with the city. And then lastly, they're dealing with disputes regarding, like Mr. Meyer said, the cost associated submitted with some of the permits. So, the property management team is submitting the cost, saying it's gonna cost this much. The city is saying, oh, it should cost more. So they're dealing with those kinds of disputes. But other than that, there are no more permits that need to be pulled for these two buildings.
Would the city agree with that they don't need any more permits, but it's going to be the adjustment of the work as well as yeah, I mean,
No, the city would not agree with that. We still are seeing in our inspection report several areas of damaged drywall, and many units that have no permits pulled. I'm looking at 721 Clark Road right now. There are 18 permits pulled. Of several ways, but it looks like the vast majority of the building permits, there's still, I believe, 4 or 5 units that haven't even filed, haven't even done that.
okay, do they know what permits you have missing?
So we have in our reports where there's damaged drywall that would need to be replaced.
Okay, but I know, but you're also looking at a list of permits that they pulled.
Yes.
Has there been any discussion whatsoever that you're still missing these permits? And in terms of the work we see that needs to be done, have you told them that?
So when we have talked with the property management in the past, it is never about these two buildings specifically outside of when we did the inspections.
Okay. All right, but right now, I'm going to deal with these two buildings because that at least is some progress. Because what I'm hearing from the owners is that's something that they can get done and may be done. So if you were to look at your list, could you tell them what permits are missing from your perspective? I realize they might have a very different view of whether or not.
So in my going through this building specifically, 721 Clark, it appears that for unit 102, we have in our report that they have pulled a 1 mechanical permit. It appears in our inspections that the half bathroom ceiling needs to be repaired, require a permit. In unit 101, they have a permit for the drywall in the bathroom ceiling, but in our report, the dining room ceiling also needs to be repaired. So that permit would need to be expanded. For unit 210.
Okay, but you could certainly go through all those. The problem I'm having is they don't know that other than hearing it now.
They have the report that we gave where it talks about repairing.
I know, you told me that. But at some point, you should be able to tell them, these are the permits we see that you need, right?
Yes.
And then if there can be, don't know, but let's say there is agreement that these permits are needed, right? Then they would know what permits they need to pull to make this inspection happen and hopefully get a CO on this stuff.
So they asked for that meeting, and what I requested from them is to put it in writing so we can have it all in writing, because we go.
Put what in writing?
Put the questions they have, and we would reply with the permits that we felt like they needed in that question. We have yet to get that from the manager.
Okay, so here's the deal. Because I'm here anyway. So apparently I'll be that conduit of getting these things answered, because this makes no sense to me. I understand you want certain things in writing. I understand that they may want certain things in writing, but I just. How many units are in these buildings?
48
48 total,
for both.
Total.
24.
24 building, right? So right now, in my mind, there's an opportunity within the very near future to have 48 units back online that can house people. Folks, that's how I'm looking at this. I've got people staying in hotels and I think it's necessary. I've got all of these folks all around displaced. And then we've got an opportunity to get 48 units back online. And so if everybody has to sit here all day, we're going to find a way to get a mechanism by which that's going to happen. Because it's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit the owners. It's going to benefit the city if those 48 units come back online. Some of this stuff that I'm hearing trying to use a kind word that my mother might appreciate, because the ones that are immediately coming, she would not. But a lot of this is petty. I just need to know what permits the city sees these owners as having to get. And then we can they can either agree to it, or if I have to make a decision on it, I'll make a decision. And then there is at least a clear road by which that can happen. I at least have the fees and what may be the penalty and in terms of that amount. But now we've got to narrow down these permits. What were you going to say? No, see, I'm going to tell you what, Council. You got too much of a towel. Like, you look at me, you kind of smile, and then something's going to come out that's going to throw my plan all through everywhere. I'm just letting you know what I think about you. Go ahead.
I will say something.
If I insist, very, very good. Go ahead.
We welcome the idea of a list from the city. I think a part of the issue on our end as well is that we've been dealing with some peculiar requests for permits. We're dealing with fixing a bath fixture and plumbing fixture and electrical filters, where if you did that at your own home, you wouldn't have to pull a permit for that.
Because it's my own home. That's why. But I think this isn't. So, no, I hear you. And I don't live in the city, so.
And some of these are common things that, the maintenance
I'm-
staff on the grounds do. So it's,
I know. I hear you. And that, I think, gets into the basic dispute that Mr. Friedman brought up as to these are things that customarily would not require a permit. Okay. I will also tell you, however, so that you know from my perspective where some of this comes from. Well, I'm not going to say that. I'll just leave it. So I get that, but I can't even get to the point of trying to resolve any of that if I don't know what permits are being requested and which ones you would then see as ones that aren't necessary. I've got to have or something to look at to say, okay, you're right. I don't know why a permit's necessary. Okay. So, Mr. Friedman, I'm going to take a recess. That is a scheduled recess. How long will we? That for? ask Ann real quick, because I know Mr. Friedman has to go. Mr. Friedman, do you, and I know your council record, do you mind if I? Okay, because I want, legal services is here. They have an interest in trying to get at least these 48 online and everything. And I'd like to try to deal with the parties to try to see if we can at least get some progress on that issue. So you don't have a problem if you're not here.
You're not.
Why are you looking so happy about it? No, I'm kidding. What'd you say?
I was just gonna suggest it.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna stand and read. Did she give you? Can you find out from Ann what we scheduled this, built this in? Just ask her what time. Breaking. 1? Okay. So we'll read. Ending at 10:30 and till 1? Get her out here. I don't think that's right. So I guess it is 1 o'clock and then we'll come back. But in the interim, while we'll be off the record, well, I'm going to recess to that time, but we're going to be working on trying to get this part done. And then whatever we have to do, okay?
Scheduled for this afternoon. Do we have a time for that set?
Oh, God, yes. I mean, yes, I got, yes, there are. So what I've done is these cases are the summary proceedings. They're then what I'm calling the affirmative complaints that have been filed. And I was looking at dealing with that in the afternoon. I thought mixing them at this point would not have been a good idea. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do in the interim. How long will it take you to come up with what permits you see for these 2 buildings, Mr. Mark?
I think we can do it by. Sorry, can I ask?
Sure. You're looking.
Our building permit. Be the one from village.
Hour or so.
All right. Do that. Do you have a list of those building permits? Well, you've said there are building permits. You just need to find all of them, right?
Correct, so.
And that's where you guys are.
They need to be final, or there's the discrepancy in the amount that was submitted with it. But as Mr. Myers mentioned, the BSNA website is down. So it's not.
Of course it is.
Well.
No, okay. So there are certain things you can't see right now.
Typically, I would be able to go in there and see the permits that have been pulled, but I mean, maybe it's the room, but it's not pulling up for me right now, but I will try during the.
Why she go there? Maybe it's over about your courtroom, Judge. Well, no, you're in trouble. All right. So, let's see if we can get you access to that, or if it is something here, who knows? So that we can at least see what's been pulled and everything. All right, so.
It sounds like Mr. Don was able to get on.
Okay.
I'm able to access
You're able to access it? Okay.
the
Maybe
public side.
I'll keep trying, I'm not sure. But it's literally.
Couldn't be the user. Okay. I'm just saying, all right. So court will stand in recess, but the parties don't go too far because I may want to talk with each side as we kind of get through this process, but get a list, get your list. And if you know the ones where you've been told that there is a dispute regarding the amount on it, then let's mark those and try to figure out those. All right. Court will stand in recess.